Hi everyone. This video is a book review about a book that is very popular, and it's also a title that I have been wanting to read for the past few years. And the title of this book is Atomic Habits: Tiny Changes, Remarkable Results. An easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. It was written by James Clear. It is a #1 New York Times bestseller, and it has over 1 million copies sold. This book was a very fun read for me. I do apologize that I have not had a book review in several weeks. I have been extremely atrociously busy. It took me the course of those weeks to finish this book. I would read it on the train, and I would also read it on the bus. It was, I guess, like a talking piece or for people on the train or the bus. I would be reading it and people would see the title and ask me, what was it about? What were atomic habits? In fact, I had one man just sit in the seat in front of me, say, "What you reading?" "Atomic Habits." "What's atomic?" "On the molecular level." "What's molecular?" "To the smallest extent." "I'm going to need you to put your number in my phone so I can tell you my life story." Well, sir, I can't tell them your life story, but I can tell them about James Clear, the author, which is what I will do right now. James Clear, this is him. It's a relatively, not too old picture, probably from a few years ago. It says James Clear is an author and speaker focused on habits, decision-making, and continuous improvement. His work has appeared in the New York Times, Time, and Entrepreneur, and on the CBS This Morning. His website receives millions of visitors each month, and hundreds of thousands subscribe to his popular email newsletter, including me. He is a regular speaker at Fortune 500 companies, and his work is used by teams in the NFL, NBA, and MLB. Through his online course, The Habits Academy, Clear has taught more than 10,000 leaders, managers, coaches, and teachers. The Habits Academy is the premier training platform for individuals and organizations that are interested in building better habits in life and work. Clear is an avid weightlifter and photographer. He lives with his wife in Columbus, Ohio, and his website is www.jamesclear.com. Now, I went to his website to see if he had any more books, but apparently Atomic Habits is the only book he has written thus far. A lot of his writings that you can get now, or if you subscribe to his newsletter, he sends them out on a frequent basis. When you go to his website, he even has a little journal to track your habits. He has a little habit pin, and he has something else that he sells on there, but I can't remember what it is. If you go on YouTube, you can find some videos of him giving lectures, being interviewed, and all sorts of things. You will also find that there are a plethora of book review videos about Atomic Habits. Even if he isn't the primary book that they're reviewing, if you come across certain self-esteem or self-improvement videos, you might notice that you'll hear some of his writings in that person's video. I noticed that throughout maybe 5 or 6 videos. It is a very dynamic book. I really enjoyed reading this book. This book was published in 2018 by Penguin Random House, or by Avery, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House. I selected this book because I am always trying my best to improve myself. I'm always trying my best to develop myself and keep myself focused and have self-discipline. When I was growing up, the only type of discipline I had was memorization at school and getting prizes and all of that, but it wasn't for my own personal development. So that's why I was drawn to this book. I kept seeing it, I kept hearing about it, and I just wanted to learn about it for myself. His writing reminds me a little bit of, what is that man's name? I want to say it's Charles Duhigg, but do not quote me on that. But this book reminds me of one or two of the Charles Duhigg's books, which ironically he referenced in this book. So I'm not going to go through every single chapter of this book. I'm going to start off with the introduction, telling you a little bit about James Clear, and then I'm going to gloss over 3 chapters that stood out to me, and hopefully it will inspire you as well to select this book. My personal goals for using this book, since I liked it so much, I'm actually going to use it as a reference book to motivate me, to get me back on track. The type of learner that I am, I have a very long memory, yet at the same time, a short attention span. I get panicky, I get stressed. I try to do 10 billion things at one time and in 1 hour, and that is just not possible. But this book gave me the burst of motivation that I needed. After reading this book, I actually cleaned half my house, for real. So, introduction. In the introduction, he talks about an injury that he sustained when he was a sophomore in high school. He was hit in the face with a baseball bat. This caused him to go to the hospital. I guess it was a concussion, but it turned very, very bad. He started having seizures. He was placed in a medically induced coma and placed on a ventilator. Ironically, his parents had been to that same hospital 10 years before because his sister was diagnosed with leukemia when she was 3, and he was about 5 at the time. His brother was 6 months old. His sister went through chemotherapy and all of the treatments for 2 years, and then, she ended up cancer-free. So this whole situation was like a cycle of events. But even though he sustained that very terrible injury, miraculously, he recovered over the course of time, very slowly. Some people, when they get a bat to the head, they're not the same. Sometimes they'll have lifelong seizures. Sometimes they will die. Other times they might be paralyzed. It really all depends on what the cards are in store for you. So he talks in the introduction about his recovery. His eye his eye bulged out of his socket, but it went back in place. It says it was held precariously in place by my eyelid and the optic nerve attaching my eye to the brain, or to my brain. I returned home with broken nose, half a dozen facial fractures, and a bulging left eye. The following months were hard. It felt like everything in my life was on pause. I had double vision for weeks. I literally couldn't see straight. It took more than a month, but my eyeball did eventually return to its normal location. Between the seizures and my vision problems, it was 8 months before I could drive a car again. At physical therapy, I practiced basic motor patterns, like walking in a straight line. I was determined not to let my injury get me down. But there were more than a few moments when I felt depressed and overwhelmed. I'm really happy that the author shared this story, because sometimes people will go through something traumatic like a injury or a loss of finances or a divorce or something that will shake them to their core. And it will either make them or it will break them. It will either leave them bitter or it will leave them determined to make something good out of the situation, if that makes any sense. So he decided to use this as his learning experience. This is also one of the tactics I use in order to stay on track with my goals. if I don't accomplish something, and I still want to accomplish it, I know that I have the rest of my life to accomplish it, and it will get done eventually. I don't beat myself up for not achieving my goals in the time that I want them to be achieved. Some goals I actually outgrow and I don't want them anymore, so I don't see them as a failure. It's only a failure when you still want to do it, but everything and all of your actions are saying that, or are reflecting that you're not doing it. That's the only time you're like failing and giving up. But in this case, even though he could have actually ended up paralyzed or dead, he took the circumstances into his own hands and decided to make the best of it. I became painfully aware of how far I had to go when I returned to the baseball field. 1 year later, baseball has always been a major part of my life. My dad had played minor league baseball for the St. Louis Cardinals, and I had a dream of playing professionally too. I just think it's so weird and ironic that in almost all of these books I read, no matter who writes them, I either find St. Louis or I find Missouri. I find a piece of myself in all of these books. It's just kind of cool. But he ended up, not making his team for his grade. He had to play down with the sophomores on junior varsity, and it just was, he didn't have a great end of baseball high school career, if that makes any sense. However, one thing that changed was he decided to attend college at Denison University. And at college, he managed to become a college athlete. And this was the turning point for him, for his habits to begin changing. Instead of doing what everybody else was doing, like partying and keeping a messy dorm, he decided that he wanted to be more organized. He wanted to keep his grades up. And as a result, he was named to the ESPN Academic All-America team. He won the President's Medal for school. He was voted team captain and all of these different things. A lot of people talk sometimes about the downsides of going to college, debt and all of those different things. But I feel the same way, like how he felt in college. I wasn't the best student, but one thing that I did learn was I should never give up, no matter what circumstances came in front of me. How I stayed out of trouble was watching the consequences of other people's actions happening to them. And that is what kept me on a straight and narrow path. I watched a lot of girls just get pregnant, drop out of school. I watched a lot of people just end up with the wrong friendships or end up having terrible habits and just not finishing what they came to complete. This single thing was my motivating force. I was like, you know what? I may not be the best student. I may not be on the dean's list, but damn it, I'm finishing school. And that is exactly what I did. And I ended up getting my degree. Everybody has their why, or why they do something. And you have to find out what your why is. Why are you achieving your goals? Is it for you or is it for somebody else? It's more powerful when it is for you. Unless it's for somebody like, your child or your parent, where you just want to make them proud and it benefits everybody in the long run. And then he goes on talking about how he came to be a writer and various things. He's divided this book into a couple of different sections. So the first section is the fundamentals. Then he has the first law, the second law, the third law, the fourth law, and he has a section called advanced tactics and an appendix. So I'm going to only focus on the 3 chapters that I have marked off. The first chapter I'm going to focus on is the fundamentals, why tiny changes make a big difference. Chapter 1, the surprising power of atomic habits. In this chapter, he focuses on how one little change has an overall effect. And he uses the example of the British cycling team. It says the organization, which was the governing body for professional cycling in Great Britain, had recently hired Dave Brailsford as its new performance director. At the time, professional cyclists in Great Britain had endured nearly 100 years of mediocrity. Since 1908, British riders had just won a single medal at the Olympic Games, and they had fared even worse in cycling's biggest race, the Tour de France. In 110 years, no British cyclist had ever won the event. So this is their setting stage. They've been mediocre. They haven't won anything. They've just been basic. So how did they go from just being basic to being great? It all changed by changing these small factors that nobody thought about. Brailsford had been hired to put British cycling on a new trajectory. What made him different from previous coaches was his relentless commitment to a strategy that he referred to as the aggregation of marginal gains, which was the philosophy of searching for a tiny margin of improvement in everything that you do. Brailsford said the whole principle came from the idea that if you broke down everything you could think of that goes into riding a bike and then improve it by 1%, you will get a significant increase when you put them all together. 1% on the surface looks small, but over the course of time, that 1% adds up. I knew this as a child. I don't know why I forgot it as an adult, maybe because I got consumed in the world of adulting, but when I was a child, I was saving every single cent because I thought I was going to pay for college myself. I started when I was 7 years old, saving my loose change, and by the time I was 13 years old, I had a little over $1,000 just in loose change. 1 penny, 100 pennies adds up to $1. So just imagine all of those pennies and nickels and all of these things I saved over the year. Even though they seemed small, they had a dynamic and impactful number. Brailsford and his coaches began by making small adjustments you might expect from a professional cycling team. They redesigned the bike seats to make them more comfortable and rubbed alcohol on the tires for a better grip. They asked riders to wear electrically heated overshorts to maintain the ideal muscle temperature while riding and use biofeedback sensors to monitor how each athlete responded to a particular workout. The team tested various fabrics in a wind tunnel and had their outdoor riders switch to indoor racing suits, which proved to be lighter and more aerodynamic. But they didn't stop there. Brailsford and his team continued to find 1% improvements in overlooked and unexpected areas. They tested different types of massage gels to see which one led to the fastest muscle recovery. They hired a surgeon to teach each rider the best way to wash their hands to reduce the chances of catching a cold. They determined the type of pillow and mattress that led to the best night's sleep for each rider. They even painted the inside of the team truck white, which helped them spot little bits of dust that would normally slip by unnoticed, but could degrade the performance of the finely tuned bikes. This man went all in. He didn't just go one step. He went 10 gazillion steps. He was nitpicking his way to success. Nit. It's not the small things that break up a marriage. It's not the small things and small pieces of trash that... No, not the small thing. It's not the large pieces of trash that ruin the environment. It's not the large arguments that ruin a marriage. It's the small little things that add up. How did it get large? It didn't just get large to be large. Because if it started off large, there would be a panic. There would be an emergency. No, it was tiny little incremental changes. And that is the tactic that this man used. As these and hundreds of other small improvements accumulated, the results came faster than anyone could have imagined. Just 5 years after he took over, the British cycling team dominated the road in track cycling events at the 2008 Olympic Games in Beijing, where they won an outstanding 60% of the gold medals available. And they ended up winning the Tour de France. Wow. How did this happen? How does a team of previously ordinary athletes transform into world champions with tiny changes that at first glance would seem to make a modest difference at best? Why do small improvements accumulate into such remarkable results? And how can you replicate this approach in your life? Why small habits make a big difference, and this is where he explains it. Improving by 1% isn't particularly noticeable or notable. Sometimes it isn't even noticeable, but it can be far more meaningful, especially in the long run. The difference a tiny improvement can make over time is astounding. Here's how the math works. If you can get 1% better each day for 1 year, you'll end up 37 times better by the time you're done. Conversely, if you get 1% worse each day for 1 year, you'll decline nearly down to 0. What starts as a small win or a minor setback accumulates into something more. Now I had a flash right now. I'm gonna go get another book. I'm gonna go get this other book. Yeah, it fits. You'll see. You'll see. This book, signed by the author, of course, Michael A. Jenke. Let's see what he says in here about small 1% differences. Generational discipline. And I know I'm going back to this book, but I need to read this to you. As an example of generational discipline, let's take a look at the lives of two men, Max Jukes and Jonathan Edwards. Max Jukes was an atheist who believed in the abolition of laws and rules. Mr. Jukes believed in and preached about a lifestyle of free sex, no laws, no formal education, and no responsibilities. Jonathan Edwards was known by all as the disciplinarian, not because he disciplined his children harshly, but because he was a self-disciplined man. He became a preacher that believed in leading by example. He authored 2 books on the subjects of responsibility and integrity. Mr. Edwards became known for teaching people from all walks of life how to be responsible for their actions. Both of these men came from very similar backgrounds, but developed opposing lifestyles and beliefs. The only common ground these men shared was that they both fathered 13 children. Here are the legacies that they left behind. So let's see what Max Jukes has. Max Jukes, the one that was like, no laws, no education, no responsibilities. Let's see what he left behind. What was Max Jukes' 1%? He left 1,026 descendants. 300 of them were convicts. 190 of them were prostitutes. Not that I'm saying that's bad or anything, but I guess, this author is kind of religious. 536 alcoholics and drug addicts. What did Jonathan Edwards, the disciplinarian, leave behind? 929 descendants, maybe because he was more, responsible. 430 ministers, 86 college professors, 75 authors, 13 university presidents, 7 congressmen, 3 governors, and 1 vice president of the United States. 1% just doesn't affect your habits. 1% betterment, or I guess degenerating in your nature, affects your entire life and the generation after. If I was going 1% towards poverty, my children, whenever they come, would be messed up. If I'm going 1% towards wealth, in the future, my child most likely will continue going 1% towards wealth. They might even go 2% towards wealth because I set them on that path. I currently am going 1% better than the path that my parents took. My mother is still alive. My goal is to make her proud. I have to go further than my mother did. My mother and my father did not finish college. My mother had me when she was 28, 29 years old. I will be 34. I said, I will not not finish school. I will finish school. I will finish my education. I won't be a single mother when I'm 28 or 29, unless it's by my own personal choice. So now I'm almost 34 with no children. I didn't want to get into any baby daddy drama. My dad, he went in the opposite direction of my mother. My mother was always in church. My father was always, having fun. So he ended up in a bad way, in a bad situation. That's why I don't drink. That's why I don't smoke. That's why I don't use substances, because I am trying to be 1% better. And here I am on YouTube, talking to all of you. When I could just be out here partying. I could be out here being overly zealous, or getting drunk somewhere, or getting strung out on something. But I'm over here talking to you, trying to make your life better as I make my life better. Here is a chart. 1% every day. 1% better every day. This is what happens if you improve. This is what happens if you decline. Look at this. Look at this. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. The same way that money multiplies through compound interest, the effects of your habits multiply as you repeat them. They seem to make little difference on any given day, and yet the impact they deliver over the months and years can be enormous. It is only when looking back 2 or 5 or perhaps 10 years later that the value of good habits and the cost of bad ones becomes strikingly apparent. He also has a chart which shows what happens when you're compounding negativity and compounding positivity. When productivity compounds, you accomplish one extra task on any given day, but it counts for a lot over your career. When your stress compounds, you get frustration in a traffic jam, and by themselves, these common causes of stress are manageable, but when they persist for years, little stresses compound into serious health issues. Relationships compound. People reflect your behavior back to you. The more you help others, the more others want to help you, ideally. Being a little bit nicer in each interaction can result in a network of broad and strong connections over time. Outrage compounds, so like riots, protests, mass movements, they can destroy entire cities. When you don't nip the fire in the bud, your city can be jacked up. I know this from Ferguson. We had so many other things happening that were similar to what happened in Ferguson, but it was the final straw with Ferguson. There were other people over the course of the years that had been murdered brutally by the cops, but nobody had really a reaction like what I saw in Ferguson. That is something that compounded over the course of time. People just got tired. As I stated, a relationship just doesn't break out of one big thing happening. It's the little itsy bitsy tiny things nitpicking at you. It's the little ocean waves that wear away the boulder. It's the little chisel that wears away the entire mountain over the course of time. 1% better, 1% worse makes a world of difference. So, next one. Chapter 3. How to build better habits in 4 simple steps. Hold on. It says why your brain builds habits. A habit is a behavior that has been repeated enough times to become automatic. The process of habit formation begins with trial and error. Whenever you encounter a new situation in life, your brain has to make a decision. How do I respond to this? Neurological activity in the brain is high during this period. You are carefully analyzing the situation and making conscious decisions about how to act. This is the feedback loop behind human behavior. It says, you're exploring. So let's see. The science of how habits work. The process of building a habit can be rewarded into 4 simple steps: cue, craving, response, and reward. Breaking it down into these fundamental parts can help us understand what a habit is, how it works, and how to improve it. So, let's go through cue, craving, response, reward. What is cue? Cue triggers your brain to initiate the behavior. Then, cravings, the motivational force behind every habit. And cravings differ from person to person. Third is the response. The response is the actual habit that you perform, which can take the form of a thought or an action. And then finally, the response delivers a reward. Rewards are the end goal of every habit. The cue is about noticing the reward. The craving is about wanting the reward. The response is about obtaining the reward. We chase rewards because they serve 2 purposes. They satisfy us and they teach us. The first purpose of rewards is to satisfy your cravings. So that's what I'm doing now. Like my craving is to have a wait, hold on. Maybe no. There is a cue. Okay. The cue triggers your brain to initiate a behavior. It is a bit of information that predicts a reward. Our prehistoric ancestors were paying attention to cues that signaled the location of primary rewards like food, water, and sex. Today, we spend most of our time learning cues that predict secondary rewards like money and fame, power and status, praise and approval, love and friendship. I can't tell you what my cue is, but I do know that my craving is financial stability, happiness, and fulfillment. That's what I want. Most of the things that I do, most of the actions that I take is due to that craving. I will try all sorts of different things in order to get to that craving. Sometimes I'll use magic. Sometimes I'll use my earthly actions. I just want what I want. Sometimes I don't care how long it takes, because when you crave something long enough, you will find methods on how to get towards it. That is why the author, Emma Curtis Hopkins, who was a divine scientist, she talks about the good that I am seeking is my God. My God is my life. She says people at that time were focusing on the word God when they would have been closer to focusing on the word good. Why do people drink? They are drinking because they're searching for their good. If they could name what they wanted, then they would stop drinking. So the person that drinks might be looking for peace. If they knew that their good was peace and they could name it, they most likely would stop drinking. They would find other methods or approaches to achieve that peace. Sometimes we will crave something and we will do destructive things in order to get what we think is the reward. Sometimes the reward is not a good reward. It might feel good, but over the course of time, it can be harmful. He also talks about habit loops. It says, the habit loop. First, cue, craving, response, reward. The 4 stages of habit are best described as a feedback loop. They form an endless cycle that is running every moment that you are alive. The 4-step process is not something that happens occasionally, but rather it is an endless feedback loop that is running and active during every moment you are alive, even now. The brain is continually scanning the environment, predicting what will happen next. trying out different responses and learning from the results. The entire process is completed in a split second, and we use it again and again without realizing everything has been packed into the previous moment. All behavior is driven by the desire to solve a problem. Sometimes the problem is that you notice something good and you want to attain it. I want financial stability. I want prosperity. I want freedom. I want time all to myself. I want to meet different people. I want to explore every possible talent that I have in my body and in my mind. I want to gain in metaphysical power, and I also want to elevate people and give them inspiration to better themselves. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. But sometimes the problem that you are experiencing is that you are experiencing pain and you want to relieve it. Either way, the purpose of every habit is to solve the problems that you face. He also has a page that shows the problem phase and the solution phase. So the first example, Q, your phone buzzes with a new text message. Craving, you want to learn the contents of the message. Response, you grab your phone and read the text. Reward, you satisfy your craving to read the message. Grabbing your phone becomes associated with the phone buzzing. Then it has problem phase and solution phase. Okay. It just goes, I wish I could explain it more, but I'm getting long-winded. But it talks about the 4 laws of behavior change. The first law is make it obvious. The second is make it attractive. The third is make it easy. And the fourth is make it satisfying. That's how you create a good habit. How to break a bad habit. Make it invisible. Make it unattractive. Make it difficult. Make it unsatisfying. And so as you see these, he goes through each chapter or through each law and explains how to do whichever one he states. So as it says, the first law is make it obvious. He has a whole section dedicated to the first law, make it obvious. Some of these laws you can use in combination with one another. Others you could just do one at a time. It really doesn't matter. The last chapter I'm going over is the law of least effort. What is that? Is that a dog? Oh, okay. I was like, what the hell? Okay, the law of least effort. How to achieve more with less effort. Imagine you are holding a garden hose that is bent in the middle. Some water can flow through, but not very much. If you want to increase the rate at which the water passes through the hose, you have 2 options. The first option is to crank up the valve and force more water out. The second option is to simply remove the bend in the hose and let water flow through naturally. Trying to pump up your motivation to stick with a hard habit is like trying to force water through a bent hose. Isn't that right? That's the realest thing I've read all week. You can do it, but it requires a lot of effort and increases the tension in your life. That is some of the issues I've been having with my goals. It's been feeling hard because I have a lot on my plate. I'm working full-time. I'm in school in like 2 different classes. I'm on like public transportation. Everything takes longer. I get home, I try to do my homework, I try to rest from work, and I'm also trying to work on my goals, and it's very, very hard. I get frustrated. I feel like I'm exerting a lot of energy to try to move forward with what I'm trying to do. And that force of energy makes me want to pull out my hair. But when I use this book, I figure out different methods where I can do to make it easy. So let us see what he says. One of the most effective ways to reduce the friction associated with your habits is to practice environment design. In Chapter 6, we discussed environment design as a method for making cues more obvious, but you can also optimize your environment to make actions easier. For example, when deciding where to practice a new habit, it is best to choose a place that is already along the path of your daily routines. Habits are easier to build when they fit into the flow of your life. You are more likely to go to the gym if it is on your way to work because stopping doesn't add much friction to your lifestyle. So for me, reading is easier on the bus. It's hard to read when I'm at home because when I'm at home, I'm either collapsed on the floor or I'm trying to create art or I'm braiding my hair or cleaning or something, but I just don't want to be sitting down reading. It's easier to read on the bus because I don't have to think. The only thing I have to pay attention to is getting on and getting off. Same thing with the train. I can just put on my headphones and read my book, read a couple of pages a day until I am finished. But this, of course, is called addition by subtraction. The Japanese companies in this book, in an article published in the New Yorker called Better All the Time. It says Japanese firms emphasize what came to be known as lean production, relentlessly looking to remove waste of all kind from the production process, down to redesigning workspaces so workers didn't have to waste time twisting and turning to reach their tools. The result was that Japanese factories were more efficient and Japanese products were more reliable than American ones. In 1974, service calls for American-made televisions were 5 times as common as for Japanese televisions. By 1979, it took American workers 3 times as long to assemble their sets. This is addition by subtraction. Addition by subtraction, the company looked for every point of friction in the manufacturing process and eliminated it. Doesn't that sound like the 1% better method that we read about earlier? Tiny, minute, atomic improvements. When we remove the points of friction that sap our time and energy, we can achieve more with less effort. So that is what I have been attempting to do, but in, a kind of messed up way. So I have been decluttering my apartment. I cannot concentrate when there is a mess. I'm finally able to sit down in this chair and make this video because for the past several weeks, there have just been piles and piles and piles and piles of things on the floor. Piles of things on the floor in the living room, piles of things on the floor in my freaking bedroom, piles of things in my closet. As soon as I've started organizing again and throwing away things, I felt lighter, I felt less stress, and I was having a better time concentrating. Creating a clean and organized environment helps me to focus on what I need to do. Doing minute tasks throughout the month to achieve the amount of products that I need. So instead of making 30 products in a month, or 30 products in 1 year, I can just break it down over the course of the months. Instead of trying to save $1,000 in a month, I can break it over the course of 6 months and eventually get my $1,000 and it won't hurt my finances. I've been doing that with budgeting in my budget binder. So there are ways that you can do it where it won't feel painful. It won't feel like you're exerting too much energy. Prime the environment for future use. Oswald Knuckles is an IT developer from Natchez, Mississippi. He is also someone who understands the power of priming his environment. Knuckles dialed in his cleaning habits by following a strategy he refers to as setting the room. When he finishes watching television, he places the remote back on the TV stand and arranges the pillows on the couch and folds the blanket. When he leaves his car, he throws any trash away. Whenever he takes a shower, he wipes down the toilet while the shower is warming up. When I walk into a room, everything is in its right place. Wherever you organize a space for its intended purpose, you are priming it to make the next action easy. Want to draw more? Put your pencils, pens, notebooks, and drawing tools on the top of your desk within easy reach. Want to exercise? Set out your workout clothes, shoes, gym bag, and water bottle ahead of time. It is remarkable how little friction is required to prevent unwanted behavior. When I hide beer in the back of the fridge where I can't see it, I drink less. When I delete social media apps from my phone, it can be weeks before I download them again and log in. Over the course of time, I've learned how to use this method. I just didn't know what it was called. I do try to make my life easier in this just simplest ways. So, like even how I wear my hair. I got my hair flat ironed or like curled, but usually I wear it in plaits. The reason I wear it in plaits is because it cuts out having to do my hair every day. It's already in a style. All I have to do is put it in a hair clip and go. And as a result, I also simultaneously achieve growing my hair longer because I'm not touching it. I'm not combing it every day. I put my clothes in color-coded order because sometimes I just want to feel orange today. Sometimes I want to feel green. All of my dresses are in one space. All of my sweaters are in one space. All of my underwear is in one space. All of my stockings are in one space. They're all organized. All of my books, well, they were cataloged, but they're all in their little sections, so I don't have to be going through endless bookshelves trying to see, like, where's my book? Where is my book? They each have their own category designated by shelf. I'm trying to work smarter, not harder. My money, I calculate how much money I have. I write it on my little, see, I gotta show it to you. I can't just talk. I can't just talk. I had to get it from my secret hiding place. So for example, let's start off with this. This is my baby account. I don't have a baby. I'm saving for a baby. Whenever I have one, I'll have the money for the baby. I put my baby fund in my little budget binder. In the bank, I have $31 saved for my baby that isn't in existence yet with no imaginary father. This is what I physically have in my binder for this baby. I only have $6. I don't feel like going online all the time, logging into my account, trying to see how much I have, for my little baby that doesn't exist. I don't feel like typing in. I could be doing something else. And it also helps me to keep track in case somebody stole something out of my account. I have everything, or trying to make everything streamlined, so that way I won't have to think about it and I can easily achieve my goals. I can easily achieve all of my work. Shredding paper, if you have to get the equipment that you need, get a paper shredder, get a printer, get a trash can, get some totes. Organize your space, organize your life, and you will have an easier time accomplishing your habits. Get an accountability partner. I have one. He'd be like, "Did you chant today?" I was like, "Dang, he chants. I need to chant." But yeah, that's all I wanted to share with you guys. This was a very excellent book. I highly recommend it. I will definitely be using this book as a reference because it's really that good. And I don't say that about a lot of books. You have to be a really good book or have a lot of good information for me to use you as a reference. And this is one of those. I give it an A+ or a 5-star. I don't know. I'll come up with some type of system where it's like, I give 5. I could be 10 stars. Ooh, maybe I will come up with a sticker. I give it 5 fudge buckets. So, talk to you later, everyone.